Let's look at the types of insiders. What are the different types of insiders? You see, there are insiders and there are insiders. Let's look at the sort of thing that goes on. Buying versus selling. You're allowed to know not just what insiders are buying, but also what they're selling. Selling, you could argue if a lot of selling is going on that they're bailing on the stock, and it could be the case, especially if it's lots of directors and large quantities. But sometimes though, and this is why it can be a bit misleading with selling, is that they might just need to raise some money. They might personally need some money to buy a second house somewhere or a boat or you name it, right? So what we're really only going to pay attention to is the buying. Also, the size of the purchases. I mean, even if they are buying, clearly, if they're spending $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, even $100,000, to me and you, that's obviously a large amount of money, but to these people, generally not. So we're going to have some way of filtering to go along, and I'll show you how shortly. So we really only want to filter that out by looking at the buying and, large purchases, several $100,000, millions of dollars worth, and so on. That's going to get our attention. As I mentioned earlier, insiders are not traders. So the second part of what we're going to have a look at is the when. Okay, we found a good insider trade going on, that's the what, but then we're going to look at the when. And one thing you'll notice is, once you start doing this for a while, is that you'll see constantly that these insiders with their privileged information are constantly losing money on their trades. I mean, ultimately they might win, but they don't know. They have no way of knowing what the market is going to do, how the market is going to price their stock. And you see this all the time. A lot of stocks go down on good news. So it's very important to understand that just because someone has bought something as an insider doesn't necessarily mean this is a license to print money for them or you and I. And then, of course, there are the institutions. So strictly speaking, they're not the company insiders, but they are the big, Wall Street banks and so on. So they do have some information because they're working with these listed companies all day long. So they are on the inside. So they're probably like the second level institutions. And of course, they're, as we'll see shortly, their huge amount of purchases when they come online is what's going to move the price for us. Okay, so they of course definitely do have some information too. And then within that company, the company insiders, there are high-level company insiders. The CEO, the CFO, the people at the top, the real board members are the ones who are going to really truly know stuff, as opposed to someone lower down. You may well be a low-level company insider, but you might work in the mailroom or the factory floor or something like that. So we want to pay attention to the high-level company insiders. There's also the types of business that have the most upside. If you're looking at the big blue chip stocks, well, okay, that may end up being profitable, but these big stocks are already so heavily analyzed anyway. I mean, how much can a stock move, if it's a big cumbersome animal like GE or something like that? The sort of things that get really exciting is when we have, for example, say a pharmaceutical penny stock, where in the upside, if they get, say, a FDA approval for some drug or something, it's because of an insider buying is tracking it. Obviously, that can be absolutely stunning gains of thousands of % or more. So insiders then, we've already said that is it illegal for them to trade insider trading? So they have to be careful. They're not for example, the silliest thing they can do would be to buy $10 million worth of their own stock a few days before an announcement that sends the stock skyward. The SEC is watching this. The compliance officers are watching them. So that would obviously be a dumb thing for them to do. That would be clearly insider trading. So how can they kind of cover their tracks a little bit? How will they get around this? You see, because even with this legal disclosure that we're going to be acting on, insiders, they're the insiders, they can still end up in jail. So what they do is this: they spread out their purchases. Instead I'm going to buy $10 million worth of this stock because I can see us having some good news, They will spend $1 million here, 500,000 there, and they'll scatter it out. And you'll end up with what we call cluster buying. Cluster buying is the big flag. And that's the thing I'm going to show you how to find. How can we find such stocks? Well, that's what I'm going to show you.